All right. Just as one more time to reiterate, my name is Rashika and I am from NAMI, New Jersey. I am the AAPI program coordinator, and I'm here with Matthew, C. Milan, and Henry, who are representing the four multicultural programs that NAMI New Jersey offers to the community. We're going to get started, and I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to introduce yourselves in just a minute, but wanted to take this moment to once again thank NAMI New Jersey and NAMI National's CHEA, which is the Community Health Equity Alliance, which has made this webinar possible. So welcome everyone. And I will give it to the panelists to introduce themselves. Would anyone like to go first?
I can take it away.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is C. I'm currently a grad student at Rutgers, pursuing a dual degree in social work and public health. I originally studied exercise science, which prompted me to want to help people physically. But over time, I became more interested in the mental side of things, interested in relationships, cultures, environments, and people's overall well-being. My personal connection to mental health it became clear during grad school that I was struggling with procrastination, forgetfulness, anxiety, difficulty starting tasks, and because of therapy, and also through the inspiration of my mentors as well, those patterns were connected to ADHD, anxiety, and depression. So that experience taught me the importance of slowing down and understanding myself, and also breaking the stigma in regards to how we talk about mental health.
That was really awesome. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. Millen, you have your hand raised. Would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. So I'll go next. Like see that I also have ADHD, and I've been diagnosed with a spectrum of mental health conditions. I've healed from most of them. I just still have ADHD lingering on. So I had OCD, anxiety, and then I had an episode of sort of dissociation associated with substance consumption. Um, uh, but moving forward, what ended up being a thing for me was I was at Rutgers, and I just realized that with all these things combined, I wanted to kind of relearn and redefine who I was, right? I was moving forward as a person in the South Asian community, and as well as just a Westerner who was born and brought up here. I wanted to kind of understand myself, mental health, and even just general things like the male archetype and cultural archetypes better from my own personal lens. Something that was, you know, digestible and had a palpable impact on me living better on a day-to-day basis. I think the things that I learned from that too also related to just reducing any dogmatic outlook on anybody's mental health, because we're all just a unique, case and scenarios of being a raw, authentic individual. But yeah, I too am trying to pursue a career in mental health. I do peer support work now, and I'm looking to go back to school. I never finished my undergrad degree. I was an engineering major. So I'm looking to go back to school in studying something related to either public health or going even directly in a mental health role, like finding an LCSW role or psychiatry or something like that. But for now, I'm still just peddling my roots in the mental health field with peer support.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And yes, peer support is a great way to get started and great way to bring that support to those in the community too. So thank you. Henry, I see you're muted. Would you like to go next?
Hi, my name is Henry Acosta. I am a former NAMI National Board member. I was the vice chairman of the policy committee and vice president of the board. Been involved with NAMI for 20 plus years. I helped bring NAMI New Spanish back in 2004 through Institute. I'm the former executive. My role, I'm a professional mental health, been in the field for 30 something years. I've also
Oh, I'm
several
sorry,
family
Henry. I
members
think
with
you're cutting
serious and
out.
persistent mental illness, and I look forward to. And I said I look forward to being part of today's panel.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you so much for all the support that you've given and provided for NAMI as well. Matthew?
Yeah, that leaves me. So I'm Matthew. I'm the Northern Regional Coordinator of CAMHOP, the Chinese American Mental Health Outreach Program. My connection with mental health actually started before I was diagnosed with the malady or medley of disorders or mental health challenges that I currently possess. But it started in high school when I was trying to, reduce stigma for mental health, and I actually did some research projects as part of the AP Capstone program. But now I'm a student at Rutgers. I'm an undergraduate, and even though I'm studying computer science, I still find a lot of mental health related, events and panels just like this one to be helpful towards my own personal growth. And yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to share.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you so much for all of the work that everyone has been doing in mental health and not only supporting your communities, but supporting yourselves and continuing to show up for yourselves and for the people around you. And this kind of brings me to the first question that I have is how does your community, your multicultural community, view the topic of mental health? And I'm going to leave this open to anyone who would want to answer first. Yeah, go ahead, Henry.
Yeah, the Latino community for decades continues to view illness as a result of, as they say, andando en malos pasos, walking in the wrong steps, either doing drugs or drinking. They still fail to see that mental illness is caused by chemical imbalances, traumatic experiences. They still believe in someone gave the evil eye, to someone, and sadly, that prevents many from seeking treatment and/or asking for help because they don't want to be viewed negatively or be put down or judged incorrectly. And I know that there's been efforts at the national level and local and state levels with NAMI's family education and other programs, but there's still a long way to go with educating our community about the recovery being possible and that mental illness is definitely not something that happens because someone's going down the wrong path of life. It's stuff that, researchers still can't explain, fully, but it's viewed negatively, sadly, still.
Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely a lot of different things that you said, and I think Millen can respond. Go ahead, Millen.
Yeah, I love what Henry said there because we've had a previous panel that was similar to this, and one of the mutual sources of contention that individuals face within their own community revolved around an inability to establish a sequence of cause and effect as to why mental illnesses develop and why the community thinks that they develop for a certain reason, but they're not the actual reason. And one of the predominant substrates of that contentious view on mental health was, things related to either supernatural causes or however wonderful religion can help a community in mental health or otherwise, religious substrates sometimes of like, hey, it's a demonic force or it's this or that, and not being able to attribute things to a sequence of cause and effect. Now, with the South Asian community, as I'm sure Reshika can relate to, it's interesting because we have a weird mix of like 50% secular like underpinnings of our understanding of things, and then 50% religious. And then, but I think the main pressure that we end up running into is not only not being able to establish a sequence of cause and effect of understanding why mental health happens within our community, but it's actually mental health issues happen within our community, but also understanding that responsibility and mental health, they tend to play a very opposite role. So if I hold somebody overly responsible for their mental health or overly responsible for their functionality in society, then the mental health part goes in the other direction. And in the South Asian community, we tend to hold ourselves extremely accountable over academic issues, things related to holding ourselves through a certain standard or of integrity that only applies to our specific culture and does not necessarily apply to everybody else. And that every single culture has that lens of integrity that they want to hold themselves accountable to. For South Asians, I think with the focus and emphasis, which is very bizarre and it's distorted in so many different ways, is that when South Asians came to the United States, they were held to a standard of usually high functioning roles because it took so much effort to come to the United States from India. And because of that effort, there is a sort of underlying pressure, or it's a pressurized community that if a certain standard is not being withheld academically or with monetary compensation or what have you, you're not really meeting the bar. So it's not always the same religious underpinnings that may be part of other communities, but it is equally dogmatic in the sense that we're holding people accountable and responsible for things that they may not be able to be responsible for. For us, I think the biggest pressures are academic, holding ourselves accountable in a money making society, and also holding ourselves to the bar of social rigor, right? We have a very comparative society in general. So for us as South Asians, we're comparing ourselves in a fraction of the population of the United States, but it's a fraction that we constantly are put up against because we're the same skin color, we're the same religion, we're from the same country. So those pressures create a very pressurized environment in the individual, as well as when they're interacting with their community in mental health related situations.
Very well put. Thank you. So I'm hearing a lot of with the religious aspects, the pressure with society. I really like how you mentioned the different standard of integrity. Yeah, thank you. Go ahead.
And to piggyback back off of Milan, that's that right? Sorry. Um, growing up in a Senegalese Muslim household, mental health is not really talked about openly, or rather, it's not like discussed all the way. It's more so like it's something that you work through quietly, or leaned on your faith for, or you simply pushed past. If we were back in Senegal, for instance, an individual that was struggling mentally would be essentially like kind of cast aside, or looked at as something else is going wrong outside of their own mental health brand. And it looks like a sign of weakness to go seek for help in that regard. But as I've also gotten older, and I love that you brought up religion, is that religion itself is a mental wellness practice in my household. But it was sorry, that cut off. Sorry about that. As I've gotten older, I realized that religion is like also a mental health practice. Like we pray 5 times a day. Those prayers create moments of pause, reflection, and express gratitude, and to reconnect with something bigger than ourselves. Every Friday we gather for community for prayer, and to remind you that you're also not going through anything alone in that way. So yeah, that's how, like, it's interesting because like we talk about mental health, but in the context of more so in regards to religion, we have all these practices in place to talk about it, but not have the words outside of it to express that compassion.
Thank you. And definitely a very interesting topic that you mentioned with how religion is, mental health or self-care is still talked about in the religion, but maybe not outside in daily practice. So I will touch base with you on that, but I want to give Matthew a chance to answer. If you have, go ahead.
So, coming from a Chinese or Chinese American background, it's funny because the literary tradition of Chinese, like they have many poems that people memorize, and like the kids in China, they have to like take exams about the literature. There's a game show about the literature. There's a Chinese drama about like this guy who goes back in time. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because no matter how much words or how many words we have to express certain feelings, it almost feels like nothing is enough for mental health because we're so hush hush. The culture is so hush hush about mental illness, to be honest. So I would just say, yeah, no matter how expressive or, you know, verbose the language is, sometimes it's about the cultural norms and attitudes that people take on towards the topic that causes them to be paralyzed when confronted with it. And I've been um, subject to this treatment a little bit by my parents, but yeah, it's just a work in progress. And yeah, we're all learning here and we're learning to express the language in other ways, maybe if not through a poem, maybe through like physical love language, like just expressions of gratitude. And yeah, I feel like that's my culture's perspective. But of course, I'm not speaking hopefully for like every single person from my culture, just like giving a general like overview of what my culture tends to categorize mental health and its challenges as.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. It seems like there's a lot of common themes of there being conversations and expressions in the culture for different topics, but maybe not necessarily, mental health. So I wanted to touch with you, Sidat, with you mentioned the religious aspect, talking about it in the religion, but maybe not so outside. Is there a specific event or experience that you had that kind of shaped how you viewed mental health, either in the regards of your culture or outside of it?
Oh, can you say that one more time?
Yeah. Is there like any specific event or chain of events or experiences that you had that did shape your view of mental health, whether it was inside your religion or in your practice in your culture or outside of it, in the whole multicultural lens or community?
Yeah. So the thing is that it's interesting because for me, my experience is a little different because like for my parents, right? Um, I see how my parents embody practices that were easy for them because they were raised in Senegal, where faith was like woven into their everyday lives. And it wasn't something that they turned to during difficult moments. Like they got through really harsh situations in coming to America and finding, in regards to faith, in pursuing forward and not letting anything, it gives them that acceleration boost to be able to continue forward regardless of whatever circumstances happen. My experience was a little different because being raised in America, from my childhood, practicing religion sometimes felt more like something I had to perform correctly or be judged for, or I could not personally connect with. And I worried more about being judged than about building my own relationship with my faith. Because of that, I didn't really experience that peace, that grounding, and that sense of community that I've always yearned and longed for. So hence why, I sought to seek it elsewhere within my personal connection with people. And I'm realizing the interwoven conversations that I'm having with many different people. It's a lot of the same things that kind of happen internally, but it's just that I wasn't fully connected until I've come to appreciate it, or as I got older. Another thing that kind of sticks out to me is during Ramadan, my dad makes it a thing for us to all sit in a circle and just have a designated conversation after we pray. And in that moment, it's like we let down our ego and are able to say the thing that's been either bothering us. And something like it was a shock to me hearing what my dad had to say about his own personal experiences. That kind of humanized the whole experience of who I thought my dad was. Right? It's like he's my hero. So therefore, like, to see that you went through the same things, like, oh, it's reassuring. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. That's really great. Henry, I see your hand is up. Would you like to add? I think you're muted.
For me, my first encounter with mental health was when I was about 9, 10 years old, visiting an uncle's house with my parents, and my uncle, who suffered from depression while he was still with us, decided to try to commit suicide and jump out a third-story window in front of me. And I remember holding on to him and like, what? So in an instant. So that was my first encounter with mental health. And sadly, that shaped, my expectations that someone who's mentally ill, it's unpredictable, and anything doesn't have to be exterior. It could be something interior, a thought, a feeling that motivates them to try to harm themselves, or to do something attention seeking, even though it's not intended. So that was my first encounter. And then personally, my encounter was at 16 years old when I had a suicide attempt and was hospitalized for depression for about a little over a month. And that experience, back then, there were no CCIS units. So I was hospitalized in a unit with adults. And that was an experience that I will never forget. People talking to the wall. I'm dating myself by saying there were payphones. There were people, talking to the payphone, but not having the handset lifted. So it's like, what are you doing staring and talking to the payphone? That's weird. And those experiences helped contribute to my decision to ask for help once I got out of the hospital, and to turn my life around and to study mental health and to lead a career, a career so far of 35 years in mental health. So those are my personal encounters with mental health.
Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you so much for sharing your experiences. I'm really sorry to hear that. And I'm glad to hear that you were able to find the support, and now that you're giving back to the community. Thank you. So this kind of, Henry, you kind of did address that my next question that I had, but in terms of seeking support or mental health support, what are some barriers that you might have faced being part of your culture or being part of your faith? Yeah, go ahead.
I'll go again. For me, at the age of 16, coming out of the hospital, and my parents only knew Spanish, and in the hospital, they had no Spanish-speaking therapist or doctor. So that was a major barrier. And you're talking about, that was in 1986. And sadly, even though there's more bilingual clinicians and medical professionals around, the numbers are still very low. But that was a barrier to participate in family therapy. Also, sensitivity. When I came out, I remember going back to high school and asking my guidance counselor for help because I didn't want to wind up in jail or dead like some of my friends were. I was born and raised in Paterson. If anybody knows anything about Paterson, it's not the greatest city in the world. And the guidance counselor told me she wasn't going to waste her time on me because either she only saw two things for me: either I was going to be in jail or dead. And even at 16, not getting the support, the loving support that you expect from an adult, to have that hindered some of my progress. Luckily, I said something to my mom's, to a friend who was the vice principal that my mom became friends with, and she took me to go see then Joe Clark, who screamed at the teacher, and he made a promise to me that he'll get me into college if I didn't get suspended.
Oh, I'm sorry, Henry. I think you're muted again.
Yeah, sorry about that.
All
That,
good.
that barrier with the lack of care, the lack of support, didn't help. I didn't participate in any follow-up treatment, and I wish I had as a kid, because my parents couldn't afford it. They didn't know the language, and even the medications, they didn't want their kids on meds. So I didn't take any medications. I mean, how I got to where I'm at in my life, God only knows. It's definitely been trials and tribulations, but there's a lot of barriers that Latinos face with accessing care, financial being one of them, stigma, and then lack of support, because people just don't know what to do or what to say or how to help. And that is a major barrier to recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. Nolan, go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to thank Henry. Thank you so much for the information you gave us on really just very emotionally turbulent information about your life and your childhood. It means a lot. That's the stuff that's like honestly has the most palpable impact and the most meaningful sort of picture into the mental health world is real stuff like that. And I want to just to piggyback off of Henry. I think there's this interwoven network of guilt that seems to drive a lot of not only mental health issues, but the inability to address them and the inability to seek support. Um, and in the South Asian community, the one thing that I have noticed over and over again in regards to this network of guilt and shame that kind of keep us from seeking support is that it's like multi-layered. So even if it has a multi-layered contingency, so even if I seek support one way, I may be guilted for something else I did, or didn't do another way. So I might have taken the medication, but then the medication kept me from not being able to study. So now I'm like in a two, like, okay, I can't focus because of the medication and I need to study. So caught in like a double bind or okay, like mental health is not linear. That's the first of all. Nothing about mental health is linear. It can be beautifully simple when we address it properly, but it's just not linear. So these double kind of contingencies, double bind standpoints that happen where like, oh, I take a medication and now because of the medication, I'm stable in one way, but I can't do something else in another way. That's no longer fair. So I think that the inability to address treatment has to do with like there's these multi-layered complexities that come in that have these things that are related to each unique culture because we can't establish a succinct sequence of cause and effect for why something is happening, and we want to blame the individual first. So instead of saying, "Hey, this person's antipsychotic or their mood stabilizer or their ADHD medication is causing them to go one way or the other," and they're not sure how to deal with it instead becomes like doubling down and digging in our heels on how the individual messed something up. And that is something I think that is nearly ubiquitous in all cultures, and it has particular nuances and idiosyncrasies and even extremities in the South Asian culture because we value, again, academic performance, social performative behavior. So like if a medication or a mental health treatment is causing you to not obey those rules, the biggest thing I've seen in the South Asian community is there's many kids who don't want to take their meds because they're caught in like a double bind, right? They want to attend a family outing, but they don't want to be sedated. They want to go to school, but they want to be able to focus, but they don't want to have anxiety. I mean, these are all normal human things to want. So I think the biggest thing I'm finding with the cultural problem is that we can't address why things are so complicated and address the specific minutia that are making them that complicated.
Yeah, thank you. That was really well put. A lot of different intricacies and intersectionalities that, might need to be addressed that might not, that aren't necessarily happening right now. Yeah. Would anyone else like to share?
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, there's so many, like, I guess the word would be layered, like Melon was saying, but I also think that with the Chinese American community, that there was this kind of feeling of shame and, yeah, like the interwoven networks of guilt, if I can quote a little bit, um piggying off of what was said before, because they try to erase the memory of those that have, like, they, as in my culture, try to erase the memory of those that have, like, succumbed or fallen to, like, suicide or, like, just mental health tragedies. And I think this is evident in, like, this film I watched called Rosemead. I don't know if anyone's seen that, but they were trying to burn away the story of that, but by making that movie public and viewable to the audience, they're kind of breaking the cycle and making it kind of easier to talk, even if it's still difficult, easier to talk about mental health. But yeah, there's been a lot of barriers to mental health within the Chinese American community, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm hearing this is kind of universal with the multifaceted, multi-layered approach, and how, there's a lot that maybe a lot of the social aspects that kind of come into play, or with the families and our communities, the support that we might either want or need that we might not be getting. So for you, if what are some ways that you think families or communities now can support men and boys that are in need, to get that support and uplift them? And anyone can go ahead.
For me, I think my community can support men by decreasing this whole machismo. Uh, the masculine roles, the man in charge, the man who provides, the man who doesn't cry. Um, you know, instead of highlighting that in movies and videos and real life, oh, you're only a man if by how much you can provide, how much you're making, what sport you're good at. Stop putting that pressure on boys to overachieve, not just academically. That's more common in the Asian and Indian community, but just in life. Stop. Hey, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to cry. It's okay to need a helping hand, not to be degraded or put down just because you're struggling. So I think that's one way we can support more boys in becoming healthier men, is not putting these crazy expectations in relationships and anything, and in jobs. You're judged based on what you can provide, not who you are.
Yeah, I want to address something too that Henry just said there, because there's the nuances of this have grown past the point of it's just explosive complexity because of social media, media in general, contentious behavior between men, women, social and cultural, the zeitgeist tends to perpetuate conflict, and that it's just not helping individuals. The one thing I want to address here is it's dual, right? On the one hand, society is now starting to try to stoke vulnerability, which has gone like three different ways. One is performative vulnerability, the other is real vulnerability, and then the other aspect of it is confusion. The thing is, as men, we are through the thick of the forest, and as women, women are also through the thick of the forest. We are inherited conditioning that we don't even know where it comes from. It's too complicated. Can we address the individual? All individuals want a sense of dignity. They want a sense of feeling powerful and loved. They want to be able to cry and also to be able to have strength, right? So I think, can we stop trying to stoke anybody from being unnatural to themselves in any given moment? Can we stop trying to make people in conflict with themselves constantly? So if a man wants to cry, he should be open to being able to cry without any social pressure to do so. If he wants to feel like a strong person, if he wants to be a protective individual for those around him, he should not feel guilty for being his version of what he thinks a healthy masculine archetype is, assuming that's not harming anybody around him. So I think for me, the biggest, I grew up raised by a single mother, and this contention of what the male archetype means was just catastrophic to me by the time social media, really blew up. And for me, I really just don't think that we should be putting pressure on any individual to perform a certain way to achieve a zeitgeist standard of what a male or a female should be, right? The fact of the matter is, all individuals, they want dignity, they want love, they want respect, they want a sense of power over themselves, but also they want a sense of being able to drop all guard and be vulnerable and be who they are and be real, and not have to do that in places that are unsafe. Because again, one of the gaslighting standards that has been kind of like brought to the public now is that either performative vulnerability or vulnerability put in the wrong standpoint can also yield catastrophic results, right? We can't have people be vulnerable to people who are going to take advantage of them. So you can't have this double standard of, we want men to be vulnerable, but at the same time, if they're vulnerable in the wrong context, they're going to be taken advantage of just like anybody else. That's not okay either. So we need to understand or redefine the role of establishing dignity in society for all individuals, because I think dignity is going to be the key word, because we can't stoke or force people to be something other than they are in the moment constantly. And I think society is doing a very good job of making internal conflict a thing.
Beautifully said. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, see that? Are you? I see you're muted. Oh no.
Sorry.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that was beautifully said. It kind of like gave a whole picture of what I would want to say, but said it more beautifully than anything. Um, I just think that the support just should be practical and should be worked both ways. That's essentially what he said. You should feel free to be whoever it is that you want to be without having this overarching expectation that you need to be this thing because you saw that this is the only way that's accepted within the community. Like back to what Henry said about the machismo archetype, or the need to be incredibly strong and that you don't cry, or that nothing can hurt you, or that you got to be a provider, that everything is like your worth is dependent on what you can do for others and how you can present it to others, rather than just allowing yourself to experience who you are as well. Because I've known individuals to have numbed out their emotions, or learned to numb or lose a sense of what their emotions are telling them. And the only two true acceptable ways to express it is either through violence and anger, and that's the only way that it's respected, or through some sort of will of power in a way of seeing that you are respected. But it all comes down to you are that common decency of like, hey, I am just a person at the end of the day. Your goal isn't to be this here. Your goal is just to be yourself. And I feel like having people that you can talk to, like a community of individuals that share that same kind of mindset, that challenge you to change a way of thinking about like what is the standard way of being masculine or what is the standard way of being feminine is it can change. But you find what it is that you I'm looking at drift, that's a word, but you kind of catch my drift, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Thank
well,
you.
well said by both of them. Like I'm over here just clapping, like, oh, this is nice.
Yes, absolutely. And this actually I have a question that comes up with this is for you personally, the four of you, has there been one experience or any amount of experiences or examples where you have seen that healthy masculinity being shown or that support being shown either to yourself or another boy or man in your communities? And something, what is something that you think should be taken as a lesson for the general community?
I can give
Got
this a
you,
shot if
start.
everybody, if I don't want to take up too much talking time, but so I'll always remember I'll always remember one thing. I don't believe in people establishing like a metric for tough lessons or tough love, right? We don't know what that means to an individual, right? Your version of tough love could mean somebody's, pathological mental health issue 3 weeks later. I think I want to reiterate a word that I used before, which is dignity. The greatest core substrate that has established any amount of self-respect, love for myself, or love for others were people who gave me dignity, right? They're willing to tell me the truth while also giving me respect. They're willing to encourage me without undermining my behavior. They were willing to critique me without making that part of my core identity, right? So, as far as like having male role models, establishing a healthy archetype in society, um, giving people dignity, right? And that goes both ways. Like giving a man dignity means also giving a woman dignity. Giving a woman dignity from a man is establishing a substrate of dignity across the board, right? And vice versa. So I think that's something that is not emphasized enough. I think there's this constant like, again, to use another word I used before was you know, this network of guilt and shame, right? Can we stop using a network of guilt and shame, see individuals as they are, right? Not try to perpetuate, culturally established image of what a person is supposed to be before we even meet them, right? I mean, there's research that shows when we're going out as individuals, we're already establishing a social media based, stratification of what type of individual an individual is. And that doesn't make sense. That's pathological, right? In the past, our society used to interact with about an individual would interact with about 10 to 15 individuals. Their nervous system would interact with about 10 to 15 people on a day-to-day basis. Now, because of the amount of sensory input that we have, we're probably interacting with like 300 other nervous systems on a day-to-day basis from our own individual, succinct one, gestalt of an individual nervous system. That's too much overwhelm. I mean, we have to get back to roots. Can we establish, dignity, self-respect, and respect for others on a one-on-one basis? And that gives us better mirroring, right? We can mirror ourselves better. We can understand who we are in relationship to other people much better. And that will take time. I mean, we are in a very overwhelmed period of history or soon to be history, right? So to establish a role in which we understand how a man becomes a whole person in the mental health community, we need individuals who provide us respect and self-respect, not you know social media influencers who are giving us one-liners about how to pick up a girl or how to be the strongest guy or using extremities as a form of motivations or such as the extremities of military influence or the extremities of somebody running 300-mile races in the desert. All those are good, maybe in their individual, respective terms, but we need some place where we understand an individual is a completely unique phenomena. And that has not been established in history once. So it'll take some work.
Yes, separating the individual from all of the different identities that they carry is a very, very difficult path. Absolutely. But very well put is, trying to find that balance and trying to bring that support. Matthew, do you have an example of something that, maybe someone might have said or done that either, for you or someone else that you think actually did help in support or just helping even just feel better?
Yeah. So I've had people in my life tell me, "Oh, you're doing well, like you're doing good. Like, do you really have like these conditions?" When I tell them about it, but that's not the helpful part of it. What's helpful is they bring awareness to my wellness, and during that time, I can use that to assess what I'm like when I'm not well. And I know we can share resources like at the end or just advice during the Q&A, but what's helped me was the introduction of something called Psychiatric Advance Directive. It's very useful, um, and it just lets me be aware of who I can trust while I'm kind of in the, for lack of a better word, like good state of mind, and then who I don't want to be involved during my kind of uh, episodes or breaks. Um, and yeah, I would say I wish my dad had said this to me, but maybe I can make it up for that by saying this to him, that, it's okay to be kind of fragile at some point, but you don't have to make that your weakness. You can kind of make that your strength. I really wish that was communicated to me, because the fragility, I mean, even in the capitalist, like entrepreneurial society, they're talking about like terms like anti-fragility, like bootstrapping, like just these terms that seem like, oh, you have to do it yourself, you can't really rely on others. But yeah, I really wish others, like my dad, like the strong people in my life, the role models, would rely more on maybe the like Davids, or like, like the Goliaths would rely on the Davids, to use like a really like cheap example. But yeah, I feel like that's something I would appreciate more of.
Yeah, thank you. And I really like how you said, something that you wish your dad might have said to you, but you can make up for it by saying it back to him. It's really, I love that you said that, rather than, kind of just stopping that connection, that you both are still, in each other's lives. It's still your first time living. So it's a great way to bring that connection both, for each other as well. So thank you. Um, and this does go into, one of my next questions. And Matthew, I want you to talk a little bit more about the psychiatric advance directive in this. But how has your community's support and awareness of mental health changed over the years? And with that, what is, one piece of advice that you would give to men and boys moving forward who might face that mental health stigma and still want to seek some help?
Yeah, I can just chip in a little bit. So I feel like I would say to them, just addressing the advice, everyone deserves to be well. Like, not just that all will be well, like that's a common phrase that I hear a lot, like all will be well, no matter all's well that ends well. But I think it's about, not necessarily you need to earn the right to be well, you need to have some sort of special, standing to be well. I feel like everyone deserves to be well, and even this is a little play on words, but maybe even the underserved community deserves to be well just as much as the marginalized community does as well. So I know I used a lot of the same words here and there just to communicate my point, but I feel like, yeah, if we can start speaking in a more equitable, like, um, destigmatizing way about mental health, that would be really ideal for the future generations, and it would just kind of like ingrain like a wholesome feeling within each of us. And I feel like the psychiatric advance directive, it's part of like a plan that you can make while you're feeling well for situations when you won't be feeling well, or foreseeable situations where you aren't as well as you feel before making the plan. I feel like those are steps in the right direction for sure. And yeah, I really wish I had known about that psychiatric advance directive when I was experiencing my personal kind of psychotic type of episode. But yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And yes, psychiatric advance directives are a great way to, kind of have someone be your voice when maybe you might not feel like your voice is there. And I would definitely encourage everyone to get some more information on that, if that is something that you think would be helpful for you. Millen, go ahead.
So Matthew said something really important there, which he's emphasizing equitable conversation. Having an equitable conversation, and he also says something else that was really interesting, which is this line like "all's well, it ends well." We opened up with Henry talking about a person having a suicide attempt in front of Henry at age, I think correct me if I was wrong, it was 9 or 10, Henry, right? So that's not all's well, it ends well. That's all's well is for certain people when it is going well, and then that's somebody else who is paying the price because we didn't make an effort to understand equitably what's going on in the community. And it's not to focus on like a cynical narrative or a negative narrative. It's more about understanding that, catch-all statements and, having the ability to be compassionate for others. It means that we don't establish a false positive narrative from our own angle for somebody else, right? And in regards to, the South Asian community, I think two or three aspects of that false positive narratives. One, performative, conversation like, oh, we're all about mental health and we like to talk about it at cultural outings. We like to talk about it here and there, but behind closed doors, we're not doing anything for our children's mental health or our siblings or our cousins or whatever, right? Mental health is not a conversation thing that we just have. Yes, conversations are good. Absolutely. When we're talking about ourselves, we're really trying to make an effort to make a difference for ourselves or others. It's really about changes in mental health happen when we are making an effort to connect with ourselves and other people around us in a more human way. And I think that's the biggest struggle I'm seeing in the South Asian community is that we've escalated the self-righteous narrative. So it used to be, let's be self-righteously academic. Now we're like, let's be self-righteously altruistic and academic and about, being the mental health, the people who are about a new liberal mental health zeitgeist. I'm like, no. Live it. Good people do good things. Let's live it, right? We want to change the mental health world. Let's change it from the inside out, right? It's not about what you talk about, what you're echoing. It's not about borrowed language and performative behavior. It's about, hey, can I make a difference for myself by being more honest with myself? Can I make a difference with somebody else by being more honest with them, by being a listener rather than a self-righteous talker, right? Can I show up for somebody in the community? These are the things that make a difference. And that's the stuff that I'm seeing improvements on, but again, I'm seeing it in contrast with these other things that are still kind of toxic.
Yeah, thank you. And you also said a lot of different things that really, take a huge point. So thank you for sharing. And absolutely, the different facets, the different directions that people can go, the different extremities. Challenging that is important. C. or Henry, would you guys like to add? Any advice that you would want to give to boys or men that are seeking help, or and how has your community support overall changed from maybe when you were younger or throughout the years of your mental health journey? Oh, I see you're muted. Henry, would you like to go? Or unmuted, sorry.
Unmuted. Yep. I think the advice for boys or men is to always be true to yourself and to create boundaries that you need to in order to protect your mental health. I mean, it is our responsibility at the end to take care of our mental health, to voice what our concerns are, what our needs are. So if you ask for help, you don't get it from one person, seek help in a different form or fashion. Lean on your religion or on friends, because sometimes family is not the best area where you can go for support, because they have their own issues, their own struggles. Sometimes it could be a work colleague, just a friend but that never stop asking for help, because of, eventually someone's going to care enough to stop, listen, to pay respect to your story, and to try to understand and help you through the process. So that would be my advice to others. One thing I have noticed in my society now is that from when I was a kid, there are more resources available now. There's a lot of wraparound services for children. There's just so many more resources. Unfortunately, stigma, financial barrier, geographical accessibility, etc., prevent people from getting the help. But it is actually available in organizations such as NAMI, NAMI National, NAMI, the individual NAMI chapters provide such immense support and education to family members, to individuals that are suffering from mental illness. And I encourage people to just get involved.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. And yes, this just the change of resources has been really, really, really vast. And, with mental health being a topic that's a lot more frequently talked about, there's a lot more support that's there, that's more openly available. Now, this brings us to the Q&A section of our panel, of our webinar. And one question that did come up in our comments is, what do you consider mental freedom? And I'll give you guys a second to think about that. And if anyone would like to tackle it, please go ahead. Go ahead, Millen.
I saw that question, and I really fell in love with the question as soon as it just showed up in the chat. I was like, I can't wait to address that one. Yeah, I like that one. So there's a person I work with peer support, and something I encourage him. He has schizoaffective disorder. I said, remember, you're allowed to want what you want. You're allowed to think what you want. You're allowed to think the next thought, and you're allowed to have freedom to express whatever you feel like you want to express. That might sound a little bit like simplistic or like childish or something, but we don't understand sometimes that at the extremity of mental health disorders, say schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, mental freedom is so heavily juxtaposed within itself and so compromised that people don't even feel the freedom to think their next thought, right? Imagine how crazy that is. Like you might have OCD and you don't even feel like you have the right to think the next thought that you're having because you're so scared of what's going to happen. This is what societal constraints have put on people, right? Is that some individuals can function with these constraints very well, but the internal pressure that we deal with, mental freedom means, can I at least think through my thoughts? Can I at least acknowledge what's going on in my head? Can I at least acknowledge the spectrum of thoughts and emotions that I have, rather than having to suppress them or fulfill a narrative to keep myself appearing sane, or even like a self-help strategy that is not working, like, oh, I have to be positive all the time. No, I mean, if we don't have the right to even think our own thoughts, we're subject to not only not having mental freedom, but political, societal freedom, social freedoms. They all collapse when we don't have that core substrate of mental freedom. So for me, like, mental freedom is, can I actually think through the whole spectrum of my thoughts? Can I acknowledge that I have thoughts that are unique to me? Can I acknowledge that I'm allowed to feel all of my emotions and do what I wish with them that's healthy? That's what I think mental freedom is.
Nice. Very beautifully said. Thank you so much. Matthew, I know you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I think I offer a very unique perspective on this question because let's just say in Chicago, I was with some like I don't want to call them mind controllers because that gives them even more power than I want to give them because now I'm kind of free in my kind of thinking. But yeah, I was with some sort of group that wanted control a little bit over the way I thought, the way I acted, the way I kind of behaved. And I definitely felt like this was a red flag when I was looking back on it, but during the time I was very gung ho and like very like, yes, let's, do what everyone else is doing. Let's even though it was a small group. And I feel like freedom is the ability to kind of, without like summarizing it so succinctly in one word, but like it's the ability to decide what you want to think for yourself. So it has a lot to do with individuality, but also it's a decision, it's an agency that you can give back to your own mind. It's like a kind of blessing that you can give to your mind, I want to say. So yeah, I actually recognize, I won't call anyone out, but I recognize the question asker. So yeah, just shout out for that question. Yeah, but more people can answer it. I don't want to facilitate like.
Yes. Henry or see that? I know, Henry, you had yourself unmuted earlier.
Sorry, driving through a rainstorm. So for that mental freedom question is a great question. I think mental freedom is giving yourself permission to let others know what you need and to take what you need. And what you need sometimes is a break. If you need to take a nap, if you need to say no, like I know for me, I get triggered when I get overwhelmed with so many demands from my family, my girlfriend, my friends, the job, the employees. Sometimes I just need a break. I just want to sleep. Leave me alone. Don't call me at 10 o'clock at night, or my crazy boss, board president, calling me at 2 o'clock in the morning. What the hell are you doing calling at 2 o'clock in the morning? I don't care that you're 90 years old. And I don't care that you're my board president. I'm going to tell you the next day. Stop doing that crazy crap. You may be demented, but don't be calling me at 2 o'clock in the morning. That mental freedom is I'm voicing what I need. I need sleep. I need to relax. So I need to set boundaries with friends who expect that you pick up their every phone call. And if you don't pick up their phone call, they text you because their crisis of the day is how do I respond to a text? You're a 50-year-old woman. You should know how to respond to a text to someone by then. It's giving yourself permission to not make yourself available to everyone at the drop of a dime, 100%. Giving yourself permission to go for that massage, to go to that spa day, to relax your body, mind, and soul. And that, when I practice self-care, that helps me. Is when I myself, I start getting in conflict. Oh, am I being a bad friend by not picking up the phone? Am I being a bad employee by not picking up the phone? No, I'm not. Set boundaries and take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, setting boundaries, taking care of yourself, being an advocate for yourself and for those boundaries. Absolutely. Sita, did you have anything else to add?
Well, main thing that I'm hearing in regards to mental freedom and based off of what everybody said is like just the ability to trust in your own thoughts and in your own ability to enact what it is that you want to do for yourself. And also and feeling deserving, like you have ownership and deservingness of that. Is the main things that I hear in regards to that. When it comes to advice, my main advice would be to like, and this is me talking to me as well, but this main thing would be to stop waiting until everything falls apart before you ask for help. Like if you don't need to be in a crisis to speak to someone. Support groups, peer groups, coaching, honest conversations, um, knowing who it is that you can reliably count on for the information that you do desire, having that person or people or community. And it can start small, and it's a dual thing. It's like there's a sense of vulnerability with asking for help because, again, the common theme is that strength can be seen as like that strength, or seeking help can be does not erase your strength. So I mean, it allows you to use like your strength more efficiently because now you're actually being responsible by engaging with your community for support. Um, you can be a leader and still be vulnerable. You can have help from others while allow other you can help others and allow others to also help you as well. It starts with one and then can grow into many. But a common phrase that's in my community is like closed mouths don't get fed. So open up small, but continue that path forward because you are deserving of that. I don't have everything figured out, but it's like to some part that's the steps that I I encourage all to take forward. And something that Melon said before was, and in his introduction was like to know yourself um, enough, like do the deep work to be able to ask yourself those hard questions as to why and fully answer that. Because the way that spelling is, in a way, also a way of inscribing within you the character that you tell yourself. Like, write your story so that you are the winner at the end of it, is the main advice that I have.
Write your story so that you are the winner at the end of it. I'm just repeating that because that really hit, and that was really well said. Thank you. What and I think Sidat, this is a question for you as well. Is what would help people understand situations better without making assumptions of individuals or their identities?
Well, um, particularly like it's hard because the thing is there's assumptions with like that can come off as harmful, right? Like, for instance, within the black community, right? Like if a woman or if like if a black woman was to express some sort of concern, she gets the what's called the angry black woman trope or stereotype, and that like her thing is not to be taken seriously in that regard. But the underpinnings of it is that she is frustrated by these multiple layers of things. Rather than automatically assuming the negative intent, always assume positive intent, but also assume positive intent in your own question asking as well. Like, assumptions are always going to happen, but you only gain clarity from actually asking the question. And don't be shy to be wrong. But the thing is, it's your responsibility to then correct that wrong, right? So I'd say ask, but with positive intent is the best that I can offer. You're not always going to get it right, but try. And that's all anybody really wants. Try, and then also respect the individual.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I see Millen and Matthew both can go ahead, Millen, and then Matthew, you can go next.
I just have like a quick statement to say to echo C dot right there. Like, um, I think it's very hard sometimes for us to understand that most people are coming from a very innocent place. And I really just love what he said there is like to actually trust your own intent too. Like at times, hey, the person in front of you, as well as your question for them and their question for you, most of it is coming from a good place. Like most people are just trying to operate and get by through the day. So I really love that. Like, Like self-reflection, absolutely, but also, you know, a little bit of presumption of innocence. It doesn't hurt sometimes. So thank you so much. I just want to emphasize that.
Yeah, absolutely. Matthew?
Yeah. So I feel like when I'm taking like an exam, it's a lot different than talking to a person, even if it's like an oral exam. But the way where I'm going with this is sometimes on my like math exams or like even in geometry, if you've taken like two-column proof geometry, you have to state your givens, right? Like state the assumptions of the problem. But in real life, it doesn't really work like that. Like you can't really just go up to someone like a robot and be like, I assume this and that. Like, is it true that like you have to be more tactful and like artful about what you're doing? So I would say also give yourself some grace if it doesn't go well the first time or even the second time. Just keep trying, but also keep in mind what my other panelists have been saying about like, you know, stepping forward with positive intent, believing that in yourself that you have a good intention too. And, you know, it might turn out that the other person would um, not necessarily see through that veil or like that positive intent, but they might respond better if you manifest kind of this positive intent before you like you rehearse it before you even go to ask someone a question with you know, with like in treatment or in a regular everyday situation. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. This next question I have might be directed to Millen, but everyone is open to answer. I know, Millen, you mentioned a little bit about medications and that balance and, you know, kind of figuring out like if I'm taking one medication, I can't be expected to act a certain way and all of those different nuances. But we had a question is how can clients on medications find a balance between what they're prescribed and how those medications make them feel. And if this is something that, you know, could be a conversation between their providers, how is it how can an equilibrium be found that fits or works for that individual's lifestyle so that they are their best selves?
Okay, so I'm going to contradict myself a little bit here, which is on this subject, I don't prescribe any aspect of presumption of innocence. I just don't. I there's a person I was dealing with recently who I was trying to provide peer support with, and he was put in a group home, and there was major medication mismanagement, and then afterwards it was like 3 months of self-sabotage for that poor kid because he could not deal with the medication mismanagement. Um, the hard and cold fact about medication is that yes, we need honest communication. Absolutely. Yes, not it's not necessarily always the case that the provider's at fault or that the medication is at fault. It's not always the case, but there's enough substantive information out there, as well as innumerable cases that you will even encounter at NAMI, that it is worth asking the question, right? It is always worth asking the question about medication, right? So if that means bringing up the question to the provider, if that means giving leniency to your child or your loved one with a mental health issue. So like if there's not transparency about communication, because I've experienced this personally, I've had to withhold facts about medication because I was worried that if I say them, I'm going to be put on another medication that's going to cause another problem. And that level of stress is really hard for people to understand because it's a terrorizing helplessness that I just can't, that's the only way I can put it. And it's not the most optimistic look about it, but it's the truth in the sense that it's truth from a certain angle. It's not that everything is cynical or helpless, and like medications are really helpful in so many different ways. The question is, can we be honest about what's going on so that we can discern the minutia and cause and effect, right? So as far as balancing what is, medication management and functionality, if there is not an honest, guilt-free conversation happening about every aspect of this conversation, functionality, social life, how joyous your life is on a day-to-day basis, and all the subcontext and minutia that have to do with medication side effects, as well as the inherent power dynamic that's there within a psychiatrist and a patient. If that is not transparent in every regard, including the ability to do your own research, it becomes very hard to make it a balancing. The balancing act becomes very hard. So I think establishing radical transparency when it comes to medication, from all different angles, and radical compassionate transparency, that's the only way forward, because there are too many cases of medication mishaps, again, to the point of extremity, right? To the point of really ruining people's lives, that I would be being dishonest if I don't say be radically transparent.
Awesome. Thank you. And this is, I'm sorry, would anyone else like to answer that question? Okay.
I don't have a full answer, but
Yeah.
the main thing that I'm hearing is like with anything, and this also like in regards to the healthcare system, it's like the feeling of trust and as well as self-advocacy as well. It is, I don't want to put the onus on the individual experiencing these um, the medical mishaps, or but like as like transparency in the communication, but also self-advocacy as well, because you as the individual are experiencing all the things that come with it. If you aren't vulnerable or willing to share, highlight everything that that the facts of what it is and what you hope to gain from this here. That way, think of it like a collaborative situation. It's like they may know everything about the said medicine, but you know everything about yourself. So the goal is to combine so that you guys both, it's a teamwork, not a distinct power dynamic. As much as that power dynamic is there, um, yeah, that would be my thing.
Yeah. Thank you. And for those of you that are, we're currently taking medications or are in any type of treatment, um, have you had any experience with struggling to get comfortable with that treatment? And how were you able to go about getting comfortable and being able to, return or assume day-to-day normal life after?
Yeah, I'm on medication, so I can speak to this. Um, I feel like my psychiatrist started me off on one pill just for 1 week to see if I would actually follow through and like take it every day. And then we had another follow-up the next week about my second pill that I needed to take, and to see if I was following through, of course, with the first pill. And yeah, ever since then, I've been taking it, every day. It's been pretty instrumental in my recovery. But what's weird though is that when I was with my physical primary care doctor, she had prescribed me like a physical health pill for me to take, and I was worried that like I wasn't going to be able to keep up with this concoction or cocktail of like medication that I had to take. But what gives me hope is that the doses can change, they can slowly like grow or lessen, which is weird to say because why would you could want like anything to happen with the meds. You could want to be off of them. You could want, to have a higher dose so it affects you and helps you assume everyday living, activities of daily living better. But yeah, I just view it as like a tool and kind of like not the panacea or remedy that we need to, believe in, but just, just a step forward in our everyday life. And yeah, that kind of gives me hope, and I hope it's not like a false hope. I hope it doesn't come off as like a false hope, but yeah, it's just like a next step, and yeah, it's just a one way forward, I would say. Yeah.
Reshka, I just
Yeah.
want to say one quick thing right here on this subject
Yeah.
too, that Matthew was getting at, that I think is really going a good trajectory, and CDOT also spoke of. Um, I actually would not want to undermine also the double help, it the extra help that therapy provides for this. So to be able to talk to a therapist about all your side effects, all your presumptions, all of what you think is happening, like for example, if somebody has OCD, they might start ruminating about how a medication is doing something that it isn't, or a medication is doing something that it is, but it's making it seem worse. That's why, we all, in the mental health world, we fall back on therapy over and over again. To be able to talk to a therapist about everything that's going on in your life, including medication stuff, they may not be able to give advice about what medication is working, but to even get it off your chest, to even have conscious feedback that's dedicated towards you for even an hour, that's an amazing place to really be able to talk out all the worries, because medication management is an active stress in a lot of people's lives, mental health or physical health. To be able to talk that out is a really profound thing to happen that can really change the course of how you manage your health, even over the next few weeks, even if it's just a 30-minute session. So,
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. Having a umbrella or care team. I like to call it a care team, which includes you as well. And, creating that team, dream team, the Avengers for yourself, and being able to talk it out and process each aspect is definitely very important. Absolutely. All right. Any other thoughts on this question? Awesome. Now we are heading towards the final 5 minutes of this webinar, so I want to open this up to my panelists. If you have any final thoughts that you would want to share to the audience, to the community, please feel free.
Yeah, what I would like to impart to the audience today is that, I mean, there's this song, it's like, I'm not gonna sing it, but it's like, it says it's a man's world, but I think it's everyone's world for the taking. I think it's like, in this environment, we kind of, you know, have to survive with one another. Like, this is water, like as the kind of like famous motivational speech goes. David Foster Wallace, I think. Um, but yeah, I mean, just keep. This is from Dory from Nemo. I guess just keep swimming. That seems kind of like a childish note to end on, but honestly, I wanted to embrace my inner boy, my inner child today, and maybe spend some time later with him. Just like give myself a pep talk, give myself what the child in me would have wanted to give to the adult in me. So yeah, I feel like that's something I can impart today.
Lovely. That was awesome. Thank you so much, Matthew. Embrace the inner child in you. Yes. Anyone else? Any final thoughts? All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Oh, sorry, Sita, you got something? Go
Well,
ahead.
I just thought be kind, and that works in multiple aspects. Be kind to self, be kind to others, be kind to what you say to yourself, be kind to what you say to others, and also give yourself grace. We're not always going to get it all the while perfect from the jump, but it's the fact that you're trying is it's like it's not a bad thing to try. It's like you're actually cool for trying. You're not uncool for trying. Keep trying. Like that's where we get
Yeah.
to. That's where we move the needle forward. And I love that everybody here is trying. Just by being here, you kind of prove that you're working towards something, um, something for yourself or for your care, for something that you're caring for. Take an opportunity to give yourself that thank you for, being graceful and trying. At the end of the day, is what I'd like to impart to everybody. And thank you for everyone for showing up, sharing their vulnerable stories, um, like impart wisdom and you know to listen intentfully with the goal of application, because it's only as good as well as you're able to apply it to your life. And I took a lot from here, just as much as I hope I added value to somebody today. So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, my attendees. Thank you so much for being here. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for putting your comments in the chat. If you guys have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out. I will put my email in the chat. And thank you so much to the panelists for sharing your lovely experiences, your stories, your insights, and absolutely be kind. This is what makes the world turn. So thank you everyone so much, and have a lovely rest of your afternoon and weekend ahead.